it was just a situation where, unfortunately, I got wrapped up in the case. You dig what I'm saying? And I don't blame the label for that. I blame myself for that. You know, because I never forget, they was just like, damn, you know, it was a sale, 220.39 drug sale. This was back when them Rockefeller laws was hitting heavy. You know, I had a paid lawyer on the deals, on the case, went down. You know, had a judge. You know what I'm saying? So ended up copping out to a bed at a time. You know, I don't never glorify that. You know, but at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to definitely let the peoples know what it is, because, you know, you got a lot of dudes that be in these positions that don't come on. Shout out to all my up north niggas, all my niggas on Rikers Island too, you know, and
So you were a recording artist and you was hustling.
I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, man. I mean, I like to say it. I mean, I like the way you put it.
Yeah.
But I like to say I'm a hustler first.
Okay.
It just so happens I can rhyme, man. You heard?
Okay.
Word.
So I guess the rap money wasn't that good.
No, I'm not gonna contradict myself and say that the rap money was cool, but it was like the street money was coming a lot quicker.
Right.
It was coming a lot quicker, and like I said, I had responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? I was in my own crib, I had V on the road. You know, my first seed was being born. You know, she wearing everything we wearing. You know what I'm saying? Rent coming around. You know, high cable bills and them back then. You know, so my theory was just, you know, we gonna make this rap work. But at the end of the day, if it don't, man, I'm still in the spot with it, man, because I gotta get to it.
It's not an interview. It's a conversation. Ak Skills. What up, bro?
Yo, what's really good? Yo, check this out, bro. You know what I'm saying? You got the Mr. Ak Skills definitely in the building. You know what I'm saying? First and foremost, I want to give a strong big up to my man, Mr. Dark, for having me here. You know what I'm saying? Strong big up to the Savior Podcast. That's how we doing this. You know, strong big up to the whole Far Rock America, man. You know, Edgeman PJs, Heat Holding Hamels, Wade Crest, 40s, all my peoples out there, man. That's what we doing. And once again, man, we here, man. You know, I like to call myself, like I said, man, the invisible man, because, you know, a lot of people know of the name, you know, have heard about me, but, you know, the face from, I'm going to say, marketing promotion wasn't, you know what I mean? So we here now, man, you know? Peace.
Are you the first rapper out of Far Rockaway?
No, actually the first rapper, to give you a little history with that, the first rapper, and a lot of dudes probably won't even know this though, one of the first rappers that was actually out of Far Rockaway that really rep was Flava MC. So strong big up the Flava MC, you know what I'm saying? Because I remember when I was a little cat walking through Hot Ave, Mott Ave, you know, I used to see Flava MC, you know what I'm saying, with the big phone, and, you know, then he had the joints he was signed with Uptown MCA and all that. But actually, for the record, you know, Ak Skills, statistically speaking, if we had to put this on the record, would be considered the second artist out of Far Rockaway that actually had a deal. I had an independent deal. You dig what I'm saying? And that was with Tru Criminal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you heard the perfect rap album?
Have I heard the perfect rap album? I would say yes. I would say yes. You know what I'm saying? But you know, one thing about me, like I'm just a hip hop encyclopedia, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I done heard so many good albums, so it's a shame. But you know, of course, you know where I'm going with this. Like one of my all time, I would say, you know, favorite albums would be, you know, Illmatic. You know, because that era right there was a good era, 94, 95, where MCs really had skills, niggas had bars. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't just a lot of, you know, you feeding the game wrong information these days with a lot of this negativity they kicking. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Coming from the 90s, what's one of your favorite old school slang?
Oh, one of my favorite I would say one of my favorite old school slangs would be "word is born." You know, because I represent, you know what I'm saying, like I said, I represent the 5% nation, you know what I'm saying, God bodies, peace to the gods out there, you know what I'm saying, the wisdoms, the earths, you know what I'm saying, all that out there. And I would say word is born though, you know what I'm saying, because I look at it from an aspect like, you know, that's what I want to be remembered by, as a man of his word. You know, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit there and say one thing and do another, you know. So word is born, I would say, is one of them slangs that really came out that I would say, you know, represents me.
Right, okay. So before we get into your story, man, I just want to tell you that you're a legend to me.
No question, I appreciate that.
You mean a lot to me.
No doubt.
You know what I'm saying? You're definitely a big contribution to the underground world.
No question.
Underground hip hop, big contribution.
No
bro.
question. That's a fact. And
You know
that's a
what I'm
fact. Shout out to all my underground artists too, man.
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
now, let's get to how you first got down with Tru Criminal.
Okay, so check this out, man. This is a beautiful thing right here, too. First of all, I want to say strong big up to Lee Risnick and Alex Goofius. You know what I'm saying? Those are my executives then. Actually, the way that really came about was, like I said, my pops, you know what I'm saying, worked at a golf course. You dig what I'm saying? Shout out to Big Chank, you know what I'm saying? And Mama Love, you know what I'm saying? And actually, you know, because even before I got signed with Tru Criminal, it was like pretty much the whole Far Rockaway pretty much was vibing with Ak. I was doing a lot of talent shows. I was doing a lot of open mics, joints like the Muse, Killerman Gyro back in the days. You know, we was in this spots making our way through the underground type thing. You dig what I'm saying? And to get to the question, my pops came in one day, he threw a card in my lap. He said, yo, Ak, you know what I'm saying, some dudes are starting a record company, you know, give them a call. Because prior before this, and what a lot of people don't know also is, I had a brief little deal with Cold Chillin' Records.
Okay.
But they signed me as what is called an artist in development. Like I was an artist, I was raw, I didn't have no manager, I didn't have, I was just raw. They had me running around the label, spitting to different executives, A&Rs and things of that nature. The beautiful thing that came out of that was I got a chance to bump into one of my idols, which is Cool G Rap. You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace to Bill Blast too, man. Strong big up to East New York too, man. Rest in peace, Bill Blast. And, you know, Bill Blast was like also a good manager that I had back then that was connecting me with getting me in this type of atmosphere with people. But back to the story was, so long story short, you know, my pops basically said, yo, give him a call. So I never forget, you know what I'm saying, me and my man, my Spanish man, Mikey, we came up here, you know what I'm saying, they was on West 41st, 230th, actually a couple of blocks down from where we at. And I had a demo with me, it was called Check the Flavor. This is before we dealt with Law Finesse, you know, this was the raw essence. And I never forget, it was Check the Flavor, and it was a little something for the PJs. So long story short, I come up there, you know, it was on West 41st. I'm gonna say that I got specifically, I believe the 18th floor, we was up in the office buildings. And I came in there with my demo. Long story short, you know, typical independent office, you know, kind of small, records all over the floor, you know, my type of environment. I said, okay, because I always looked at it like this, you know, I feel that, you know, I had a brief experience with a major record company versus the independents. And what these majors pretty much do is like, they focus on, if the artist is pretty much bigger than you, who you think they're gonna focus on? That's just like if you sign to a label and let's say, Mariah Carey or somebody there, whatever the case may be. Strong big up to Mariah Carey too. And but they go basically put their money behind the powerhouse. So I like independence because independents basically work with the underground artists and you can see where your talent will grow from there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what I liked about that. But back to, not to get off topic, so when I came into the office, you know, the same thing like I said to you, I asked them, yo, can I smoke in here? They like, nah, man, you can't really smoke in here. I'm like, all right, cool. So I put my demo on, you know, we pretty much vibing, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was me, Lee Risnick, and Alex Goofius, you know what I'm saying? My man Mikey, that was what
How
we got.
old were you then?
I was actually 21, to be exact, 21. And basically, they listened to the demo, boom, 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 they heard it, you know. And when it was over, what I did was, what really impressed them was, once I stopped the tape, I'm like, yo, I got busy, straight bars. Boom, 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 spitting, a cappella. You know, so they hit me with the same thing that all record companies hit me with. Yo, we'll call you. All right, so let me get my tape, and I'm out of here. We was in Manhattan, we ended up, you know, doing it up out there somewhere. So like, this is the part that's real crazy though. So like I'm gonna say maybe about 2 weeks later, you know, I'm out in Edgeman PJs, never Ocean Bay, you know what I'm saying? Edgeman PJs, the building was 411, you know, and my crib used to always be like the spot, not no drug spot or nothing like that. It was like the spot where we all used to congregate at, we spitting bars and things of that nature in there. You know, everybody pretty much knew that. And stop.
No.
And to make a long story short though, they came and knocked on my door. You know what I'm saying? And I never forget, at the time, temporarily, my grandmother was there. So I was like, my grandmother came in the room. You know, we smoking mad bud. We got instrumentals rocking. And you know, the first thing she thinking like, yo, well, you ain't do nothing, right? I said, do what? She said, nah, because it's two white dudes at the door. So I go to the door. I said, that's the label. So I invited them in. You know, they had a contract with them. We went to the living room because I had company in the back room. So we went to the living room. You know, I was basically looking through the contract. They was telling me how, you know, listen, they're an independent record company. They don't have distribution. And, you know, they took a liking to what they heard. Obviously, you know, they must have came out the Far Rockaway without me knowing. And I had just did a talent show out there at a joint called PS42. You know, and we used to do a lot of talent shows like this. So that's why I said, like, when the guard really got signed, it was like people heard me like, oh, okay, well, Ak finally got a deal. Because you probably just heard Ak at a house party the other night, or a block party, or somewhere, you know what I'm saying? So, not to veer off topic, so now as we keep it going from there, they basically, you know what I'm saying, said, well, when I looked through the contract, I noticed that it was a 2-single deal with an option. So I said, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? Because I pretty much had a good book that I used to always read called A Book of Music from David Hassan.
Okay.
So, you know what I'm saying? It was letting you know about mechanical royalties, letting you know about, synchronization royalties and all this, right? So once we pretty much got past all the small talk, you know, we was downstairs. I never forget, it was Gru, one of the executives. He was like, come on, Ak, you know, we can do this, and boom, boom, boom. And I said, well, you know, I'm going to get back to y'all now. You understand what I'm saying? Because basically what I did with the contract is I'm going to have it looked over by a lawyer. I went to a cat, never forget, his name was Dwayne Powell. Good dude. You know, he told me straight up and down. He said, listen, Ak, it's not a superstar contract, but it's a fairly decent contract. And keep in mind that contracts can always be renegotiated. So I said, okay, I took that and I ran with it because I appreciate the fact of them coming out to the Rock, you know what I'm saying, searching for me and looking for me and putting necessary money where it needed to be or whatever the case may be. So pretty much that's pretty much how we pretty much hooked that up. And once we started kicking it, we bumped heads with Law Finesse. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Law
Hold
Finesse.
on.
Go ahead.
Now take me back to the contract.
Okay, go ahead.
What was the split like financial wise?
Okay, to be honest with you, it was roughly 60-40.
Okay.
And the lawyer also told me that, and I was dealing with my publishing rights. Because they were saying pretty much like, hold up for a minute, they were saying pretty much like if, you know, due to the fact that they're putting the money into you, you know, of course, their split is going to be a little bigger than mine.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I didn't have a problem with that. Like I said, they gave me a nice substantial advance up front. You know, I didn't have a manager then, you know what I'm saying? But I was like I said, I was dealing with Bill Blast also, but we wasn't in contact at that particular time.
Right.
But that's pretty much how it was, like a 2-single deal with an option. And of course, we know the first single, like I said, was Nights of Fear with Check the Flavor. You know what I'm saying? Law Finesse did Check the Flavor. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Funky Man Productions. Then we went to B-side, was Nights of Fear, produced by my man Buck Wow from DITC. Shout out to Buck Wow, too.
So I want to go back to when you got your demo done.
Go ahead.
Like, what was the setting? Was it like a home studio, a professional studio when you got your demo done?
Okay, I'm going to say it was like more or less a home studio pre-production. Okay. Because I used to always deal with a lot of DJs, you know what I'm saying? So basically, it never was no problem to go in there. We got instrumentals lined up or we got personal beats lined up. And we would always just be spitting mad bars over different stuff. So it was more or less like pre-production, in-house studio.
Okay. So now the Nights of Fear comes around.
Okay. That's my joint.
Take me to that day. Like you had the beat or you had the song written? Like,
okay, okay, cool. Well, to keep it a buck with you, the song was actually written, you know, and the beautiful thing about that was we had just laid Check the Flavor down with Law Finesse, and I never forget that because Buck Wow was a smooth cat too. You know, he gave me the it was a beat, I mean, it was a CD tape. It had about 5 beats on it. And I took the beat home, you know what I'm saying? And of course I was basically in my spot where I was at, and we was vibing through all the beats. Smoking about a pound of some bud, you know, listening to different beats that's going on. So when I just picked it was something about the bass line, the boom, 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 boom. So when I'm like, all right, that's the one right there. You know, and I never forget when we went to the studio, you know, we laid it down, you know, I believe we was at Battery Studios, you know what I'm saying? We was at Battery. And that's another thing I respect about Tru Criminal label, you know, because they like I said, they had us in big name studios, you know what I'm saying? Chung Kings and the Batteries and Libra Digitals and, you know what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? Things of that nature.
Was that coming out of your budget? The studio sessions and...
No. Actually, that was coming out of Tru Criminal. That's why I say that, because like I said, we was working with no distribution. Right. So that's another reason why I understood, you know what I'm saying, okay, they paying for the studio time, they paying for marketing and promotion, you know what I'm saying? So that's when I pretty much knew, you know, how hectic the game was and how that money had to be circulating, you know what I'm saying? So actually that was a budget, like a pre-budget that they was actually giving me, which of course I was going to be recouped for, but that's how that was going.
So the Night's Affair,
okay,
it's recorded.
Okay.
They dropped it?
Yes.
Okay, so how did you guys promote that?
Okay, well, basically they shot at the Flex, because I never forget the very first night when it was done. I went home and I told the whole Far Rockaway, like, yo, my joint is coming on tonight. Word up, we all downstairs in front of the building, you know. And I never forget, you know, it was Funkmaster Flex had rocked it, and it came over right after MOP joint. And them niggas up the hill up in Brownsville, and they rocked Night's Affair, where we was all like jumping around, you know, and it got a lot of good airplay. Flex Sminton, but the main DJs we was really dealing with was Stretch Armstrong about Beat Though. So Strong, big up to Stretch Armstrong about Beat Though.
Yes, sir.
You know, Teddy Ted the Awesome too, Mayhem and Riz. So we was getting heavy rotation through this underground. And actually the Stretch about Beat Though joint is a funny little episode too, because when I first went up there to them, they were spinning Night's Affair, you know, and so I'm saying, like, yo, I'm hearing a lot of, you know, I'm hearing the who's and whatever, because Stretch About Beat Though was the spot. You know, a lot of people always, when they say the story, they get it wrong, but it's 89.9, or we used to like to call it 89 Tech 9. It used to come on from Thursday nights from 1 to 5. Right. So back then, it was like, you know, whoever was somebody was up there. You dig what I'm saying? And when I first went down there, I said to them, they had a mean security guard cat in the hallway. So I'm like, yo, my name is Ak Skills Boone. They spinning my joints. He like, yo, me and this dude got into a little friction in the hallway. So I guess Bobito must have heard the little friction or whatever the case. And he like, I'm letting him know who I am. He like, all right, cool, you know, but you got to have an appointment coming down here. You got a manager. But like I said, I didn't have no manager. You dig what I'm saying? So we was just taking this as it come. But long story short, though, they ended up inviting me down the next following week, because I never forget A+ was coming down the hallway from Hempstead. You know what I'm saying? So he like, yo, we got A+ coming down here. And then when we was riding home in the car, they was real cordial. Yo, your Ak Skill just came through, and by the way, he'll be down here next week. So actually, we made that happen. I made that happen actually all on my own, because I was finding out the business as I was going, how important managers was and things of that nature. Because like I said, I was raw. I didn't have that. So I had to just read good books and just circulate as I go, you know. Word.
Okay, so how did that single do? Like,
okay, well, Check the Flavor and Night's Affair did well through the Moms and Pops record.
So wait, it was the A-side and B-side?
Yes, because Check the Flavor was the A-side, which was what Law Finesse had did, and we had the gritty fire B-side, which was Night's Affair that Buck Wild had did. You dig what I'm saying? So it was like we kept it in the DITC family. You know, Finesse introduced us to Buck Wild, you know, and the streets really much accepted Night's Affair a little bit more, because it was like a harder hit. Check the Flavor was a little more commercial. I love Check the Flavor. But I never forget the label used to come through, you know, they used to come through Edgeman, and they used to show me feedback sheets. So the feedback sheets was basically documentation from DJs that was all around this country that was spinning the record. So it did well through the Moms and Pops record store. I'm gonna see about 70,000, 80,000 units through Moms and Pops record stores. And Jamaica Avenue, because I remember I used to go there, you know what I'm saying, all the time and see how the record was doing and all that, you know. So that's the answer to that, you know.
Okay, so, I mean, would you say you made a decent amount of money from that single?
Yes, I would say that. The reason why I would say that would be because once I did hook up with a manager, I started doing shows. Because one thing I definitely respected the label told me was, they said, they let me know straight up, they said, listen, you know, we don't have nothing to do with you getting shows. And I said, okay, so now this is where my money come in at, doing the shows. So I was doing the shows, you know what I'm saying? I was performing, like I said, a freestyle with 2 singles, getting like roughly about a band, 1,500 a show, but we doing a couple of shows per week. You know, and then the royalty checks was coming. You know, these royalties come every 3 months. You know how that go.
Right.
You know, and yeah. So I would say, yeah, the money pretty much was good, but I'm not gonna say it was to the point where I could sit back and just put my feet up.
Right.
You know, I was in my own apartment. You know, I had a seed on the way. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, my baby mom's rest in peace, Kaya. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, what up? You know, and so it was like I had responsibilities at a young age. You know, because I get that all the time. You know, people will say, oh, you know, if I was in your shoes, you know, I wouldn't have did this, that, the third. But I'd be quick to say, well, Paul, you wasn't in my shoes. And until you walk in another man's shoes, you can never dictate or say what he gonna do or might not do. You dig what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's pretty much how that pretty much was going down. You know what I mean? For the most part.
Okay, so at this point, are other rappers reaching out for features? Like, do people want to do interviews with you just based off of that first single?
Okay, well, the answer to that, I would say is yes. Now, I'm going to answer the first part, because I ended up doing Stretch Armstrong, like I said, on the Underground. I did them really about 4 times. That was a beautiful thing, you know what I'm saying? Because like I said, at that time, it was just an honor period just to be on Stretch and by Beat, though. This is where the Nas's come from, the Hoves come from, the Wu-Tangs come from. Everybody that was somebody went through this threshold right here, 89 Tech 9. You know, so that definitely was just a whole beautiful experience as a whole itself. Nights of Fear was first. Right. Then the next single that came behind that was called One Life to Live. We went to my man Eddie James out in Jersey City with that. And then the B-side to that was a joint called From the East to the West. Shout out to Mama Love. That's one of my mom's favorite joints right there too.
So now, who pays the producers?
The label.
The label.
The label. Because see, you know, because this is another thing I like about my talent. When we dropped the first single, Nights of Fear and Check the Flavor, we went to big name producers, so to speak. We had, like I said, Law Finesse on the A side for Check the Flavor. We had Buck Wow on the B side for Nights of Fear. But when we did the next single, we didn't have a big name producer. We went to this cat out of Jersey City. Like I said, his name was Eddie James. Sean, big up to Eddie James too. And the reason why we did that, because like I said, I want to see, because I want to see where my talent lies at. Right. And then I don't never have a problem with dealing with, you know, upcoming podcasters, upcoming producers, because we can grow together. Right. Because see, sometimes, you know, you don't really get to see where your talent at in this game, because you might be on a track with such and such. So the DJ might be spinning this record just because such and such is on this. Right. That's why I like the way I came out, because I wanted to establish my own identity. Right. Record companies usually want artists to establish their own identity. You dig what I'm saying? So that's why that's the way I like. That's pretty much the way I came out, like that. You know, and like I said, the second single was One Life to Live. You know, that did well also. I'll never forget Stretch Armstrong was spinning that. Stretch was really our go-to man. Right. So as soon as we pretty much lay it down and we get it mastered, they would shoot it straight to Stretch Armstrong, and no bullshit. Stretch would be spinning that, man, before we get downstairs in the car. You dig what I'm saying? So like that's why I said we had a real promising label. And shout out to FT too, man. I just seen you the other day. Shout out to the Godsons too. You know, and like I said, we had a real promising, inspiring label, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's just that certain things just occurred, and that's why it didn't blossom the way it really supposed to.
How do they know how to press up more vinyls, like more vinyl singles? Like, let's say initially they press up maybe 500. Okay. So it's based on sale, and they go press up like another 500.
Yeah, they would do that, because usually, like I said, it's pretty much the way they're doing it now with these streaming and all that. Because usually record companies determine how the record is doing that first week. Right. So they'll press up a certain amount of it, whether it's vinyl or whatever the case may be, and if and depending on that first week of sales, on how it's doing, will pretty much determine if they're gonna keep putting money into the product. Sometimes the artist, your first week sales might not do that well. Where you may have to come out your pocket, okay, well, I'm gonna shoot a video for this. That's like the only little complaint I would say, because you know they always say that artists and record companies never get along and vice versa. But that's like the only little problem I would really say with Tru Criminal I just had a little issue with, because the singles was doing well. You dig what I'm saying? And so I felt that the next move should have been a video.
Right.
Video music box.
Right.
We could have shot a low budget video. You dig what I'm saying? But it didn't play out like that. But what I'm saying is because we was getting the rotation on the Hot 97s, the Pete Rock, so we was in the loop. And we spinning with dudes that got distribution. We didn't even have no distribution, and we was spinning with these cats, you know? And so I felt really that a video would have really solidified them singles even better. You know what I'm saying? But I'm happy, but like I said, I'm happy the way it went, though.
Okay, so let's go back to the first single.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you actually ask for a video or ask why I don't have a video?
To really be honest with you, I didn't. The reason why I didn't, because when the single was taken off, I was more or less focusing on, like I said, getting my shit together as far as getting a good manager, getting the shows, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And things of that nature. So I didn't ask for the video, I didn't. I think what we did was, another thing was we hit the Source. Like I said, hit the Source 9/6, June, you know, hit it March 97, you know, Independence Day, you know, and like I said, that's pretty much the way it was going, because we were shooting the singles out there so quick, and then they was moving, like I said, through the moms and pops record stores and all that. I felt like I said a video should have been, we should have had one, but unfortunately it just didn't play out like that, you know?
Right.
I should have, maybe then come and think, but like you said, I should have really pressed that issue, but I'm happy the way it went down, because like I said, the singles were spinning consistently. We was signed, we was doing the shows, and like I said, I wasn't really reaching out to too many featured artists because I wanted to establish my own identity. I want to kick my foot through the threshold, and so people can see what Ak Skills is about. We're actually really the world, because people that really pretty much know me, like most dudes in Far Rockaway know, man, you know, we heavy ball spitter, man, like we've been doing this, man, like it's not a game, and pretty much they know that, you know?
Right. So at this point, you got 3 singles out.
Okay.
Are there more opportunities coming to you? Like, what else?
Okay, well, basically how that occurred, after the second single from Check the Flavor, and no, that was the first single, pardon me. After the second single from One Life to Live and From the East to the West,
Right.
that's when I noticed that, you know, they said to me, Ak, well, we're going to do a compilation album on this next go-around. So I said, all right, cool, you know what I'm saying? And I never forget, you know, like I said, you know, I kind of blame myself also because we managed to get distribution. I never forget, Lee Risnick came and had got me one day. You know, he was like, yo, listen, you know, we got distribution deals on the table. You know, and I believe one was Electra, Priority, you know, the old distribution joints back then. And it was just a situation where, unfortunately, I got wrapped up in the case. You dig what I'm saying? And I don't blame the label for that. I blame myself for that. You know, because I never forget, they was just like, damn, you know, it was a sale, 220.39 drug sale. This was back when them Rockefeller laws was hitting heavy. You know, I had a paid lawyer on the deals, on the case. Shit went down. You know, had a fucked up judge. You know what I'm saying? So ended up copping out to a fucked up bed at a fucked up time. You know, I don't never glorify that. You know, but at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to definitely let the peoples know what it is, because, you know, you got a lot of dudes that be in these positions that don't come on. Shout out to all my up north niggas, all my niggas on Rikers Island too, you know, and
So you were a recording artist and you was hustling.
I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, man.
So you're saying,
I like to say it. I mean, I like the way you put it.
Yeah.
But I like to say I'm a hustler first.
Okay.
It just so happens I can rhyme, man. You heard?
Okay.
Word.
So I guess the rap money wasn't that good.
I'm not gonna contradict myself and say that the rap money was cool, but it was like the street money was coming a lot quicker.
Right.
It was coming a lot quicker, and like I said, I had responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? I was in my own crib, I had V on the road. You know, my first seed was being born. You know, she wearing everything we wearing. You know what I'm saying? Rent coming around. You know, high ass cable bills and them back then. You know, so my theory was just, you know, we gonna make this rap shit work. But at the end of the day, if it don't, man, I'm still in the spot with it, man, because I gotta get to it.
So take me to that day, right? You on the block?
Okay, yeah, that's just ill. Okay, now, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Dark. On that Pacific day, after, like I told you, to piggyback on my story, after I seen the label executives, I had came back to the hood. You know, it was about roughly, the time bracket was roughly, I'm gonna say about 7 p.m., you know? Building was crowded, you know, because my building 411 was like everybody. It was CVS back then. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you wanted, it was there.
Right.
And I never forget the shit was it was fucked up because my man P Live, shout out to my man P Live too, had came up to me, he said, "Yo, Ak, I heard you just got the distribution." So I'm saying to myself, like, how the fuck you know that when I just, you know, seen the label, you know, the executives, you know, and like I always say, what you don't know, the ghetto knows. Dudes be knowing. So the way this shit went down was fucked up, dog, and it happened just like this, man. Like, they must have sent the narc up to the building. A narc, for those that don't know, like a CI, you know. The dude came up to the building, you know. So he was like, yo, I'm looking for this, that, and the third, boom, boom, boom. So I never knew this dude. You understand what I'm saying? It was, the building was crowded with a lot of individuals on this particular night, you know. So the dude ended up walking past me. He walked down the hallway, and he seen some other people I knew. So when I went up into the building, you know what I'm saying, I seen the transaction being made already between this individual and another individual, you know? So, but one thing I did notice was something funny though, because, you know, when fiends usually cop and go, this motherfucker was just sitting here, he was watching motherfuckers. And I never forget, I had on the purple and black North Face, the North Face fleece headband, North Face fleece pants. I was North Face down, basically. Right. But I'm peeping this. So I never forget, like it was yesterday, I said to the dude, I said, yo, if you done copped already, go ahead and go. What the fuck is you standing here watching people for? So when we all went downstairs into the building, I noticed the building that was once crowded, people was gone and it was police in the lobby. So I kept it moving out the building. But remind you, I live in this building also. So it's not like I'm trespassing, I live in this building too. So I went to the store, I came back, you know what I'm saying, and I never forget, that was a monumental night because it was the same night that Cannabis, Nori, and DMX was on the radio spitting. They was live on Hot 97 that night, because I told my baby moms, which was making fish, I said, yo, record that. You know, so when I had came, but so now when I went upstairs though, I came back downstairs and I went back to the store. So a dude that was sitting in the store said some shit like, yo, I think one of y'all made a sale over there at that building, boom, 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 because the police keep buzzing around here. So the thing I didn't really respect about that was because if I got something to tell you, I'm gonna pull you to the side and tell you that. I'm not gonna yell no shit out in the store, yo, I think, you know. So, but you know, that's the hood for you. But anyway, when I noticed how the shit, when I went back to the building, I'm like, I'm standing at the building. That's where they tried to roll, them meaning the D's. They pulled up on the opposite side of the block. Now you can come down this block now and all that, but you couldn't do that then. So now, when I looked at them, they beamed towards the building. I jetted, pew. When I went upstairs, I should have went with my first instinct. My first instinct told me to stay the fuck upstairs. I should have stayed upstairs. But I'm saying to myself, when I looked out my apartment window, I saw the D's downstairs. But I'm like, could they been looking for me? Because they used to always come to the building fuck with niggas, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, harassing people on a consistent basis, you dig what I'm saying? And I changed my clothes. I took off the North Face I had on and I put the Averex on. So now I'm Averex down. You know, because I knew even though I wasn't directly involved in something, I was around when something took place. And all my hustlers know in the hood how that can go down. Sometimes you could just be a victim of circumstance, get picked off being in the wrong place, wrong time. Actually, I got a joint like that too called Wrong Place, Wrong Time. But you know, so to make a long story short, really about that, you know, it was just a fucked up situation that occurred. You know what I'm saying? And when I went back downstairs, right? This is how I know that they was full of shit though, because when I came back downstairs, I'm in the elevator with this cat, and this shit is bugged out too, because this is what I like about social media and all that, because it was a dude that left a comment over one of my freestyles, and he was like, "Ak, you probably don't even remember me, man, but I was the little dude that was in the elevator with you when they grabbed you up." But see, let me show you how fucked up these police is, right? Because
Sorry, could you say that again?
wow. Well, let me show you how fucked up these police is. They're right about that. Because I say this to say that, and I'm not gonna sit up here and bash them people because that's a bigger entity than something. But what I'm saying is that they charged me allegedly with a sale. Now, if I was the person that made this sale, right? And it's 6 D's in this lobby, D's meaning detectives, 3 on each side. And me and Shorty, I told you he was in the elevator, would come out this elevator. If I'm the nigga they looking for, I'm pretty much not gonna get out that lobby. That's 6, we talking 6 individuals, 6 different firearms too. I walked literally right past them, man. I walked past them. I was going up the block, and when I came out the building, that's when they swarmed. Yo, you. You know what I'm saying? I had a headband on. They picked the headband up. Somebody pulled up in a car. That's how I knew that was that knock. I told you that was at the building. Even though I couldn't see nothing because it was tinted, I knew it was him. But to make a long story short, we went through the bail process. You know, I bailed out. This was a fucked up time because now the label was kind of skeptical. The label like, damn, Ak, you know, like what the fuck, like. And I damn sure didn't want no shit like this to happen, you know, because people say shit like that all the time. They be like, yo, you know, I don't never glorify the penal system, man, but I know it's real in there. You know what I'm saying? And that actually helped me shape and mold my style. Because some of the nicest niggas I actually ran into was actually in Canton, Rikers Island, up north, and these mediums and maxes and shit like that. But it was a fucked up time. But I respected just to nip that in the butt. So I respect it because the label kept it a buck. They just said, yo, listen, Ak, we're not coming up there to see you, but we're going to make sure you get all your royalties. And after seeing all this shit that I'm seeing today with dudes getting basically just done dirty with their royalties, I respect that about them. They made sure I got all my royalties. They made sure the family was cool. You know what I'm saying? And I had to also look out for myself in that spot. And that happened in early 98. You know what I'm saying? And I ended up going up top, you know what I'm saying? I was up top, 98R, 2974, you know? I went to a spot called Gowanda up north, which is a real spot. And I would say, the overall bid I ended up getting was a 4.5 to 9. It was a real fucked up bid. You know, I had a fucked up judge, you know what I'm saying, that basically swindled me. I didn't know what I knew now. And I don't blame nobody but myself, because when you dabbling in certain games, you got to know certain things come with that. And it's real like that, especially in Queens. You can ask everybody know damn near 125-01 Q Gardens is nothing to be playing with. You got some of the grimiest motherfucking, you know, judges and DAs that are going through that spot. Highest conviction turnover rate next to White Plains and them. You know, so Queens is on some shit like, we know we fucked up, but take this 100 years and get it back on the appeal. So you got to be very careful. So that's basically how that bid came about, because he scared me.
Right.
Yo, if you come in front of me, I'm letting you know you're getting a 12.5 to 25. And I'm like, damn, I'm 22. I got a deal on the table. I can't do no fucking 12 years right now. You gonna fuck my whole shit up. So my thinking pattern was, okay, let me get the lessest plea as possible.
Right.
Unfortunately, when they indicted me, you know what I'm saying, they stuck to the 4.5 to 9. So that's pretty much how that went. And it was fucked up because as the label was doing they want to, I remember sitting in the cell in Attica. I was in the cell in Attica, word up, C Block, and they had a source article. It had me and FT was in it, and it said, after introducing the world to the inspiring throne holders like the MIA, Ak Skills, and Street Smarts, FT, Tru Criminals, been 3 for 3, and I just was like, God damn, you know. But, you know, it's reality, man. You know, this type of shit, it happens every day, man. So I'm not going to never sit there and cry about it. And we're going to just do what we got to do. And I actually did the talent show up top, too, man. You know, so I did the talent show in a spot, too, called Gowanda, like I was telling you again. You know, in front of, like, it was had to be about 500 to 600 inmates in there, you know. So even though I was in a negative environment, I wasn't letting the environment get the best of me. You know, physically I was incarcerated, but mentally I was everywhere with it. And then I had good support. My family was coming up, you know what I'm saying? And so I just count my blessings on that tip, you know?
Right. So how was your lady and your kid? They I mean, that whole situation was good. It actually was it was a crazy turning point in my life, because I never forget. Did you feel some type of guilt?
No, because they said if you have regrets about doing something, you shouldn't have did it. And I don't have regrets about doing nothing. Like I said, because, you know, I'm from where, like I said, man, you know, I'm a hustler, man, and you got to get it by hook or crook, you know. And a lot of situations, man, you know, drug money kept the lights on in the crib. You know, and I'm not going to sit there and justify. I'm not sitting there justifying that, because you have motherfuckers that say, oh, you sitting there. No, I'm not saying none of that. But I'm just saying, you know, we live in a day and age now, like, look what's going on right now. Even as we speak right now, there's a government shutdown going on. People is feeling that. They already talk about next month. They talk about stopping people SNAP benefits and shit, which is fucked up. So we living in fucked up times right now. So the point I'm saying to that is that you have to do what you have to do by any means necessary, and of course, be safe out there. You know.
Right, right. So now, you did the bid. You
Okay.
come home.
Okay.
Now that you're home, back to business.
Okay, when I came home, which was 2002, that's exactly what I did. I never forget. I met Tru Criminal in Lower Manhattan. You know, they gave me some bands, a couple of some bread that they owed me. We sat down and we smoked, and I was asking them, like, you know, did y'all obtain distribution yet? They was telling me, like, no, we still ain't get distribution yet. So I said, all right, cool.
So wait, now before you continue,
Go ahead.
were you out the hood at that point, or you still in the hood?
Actually, I was still in the hood.
Still,
I was still in the hood.
Okay.
I was in Edgemere, but I actually, I was in Edgemere, but I had moved to a different spot. I had moved down to another spot. It was called really like 7-Eleven,
Okay.
which is another little building out there in Far Rockaway. And so I was out the hood, but I was in the hood.
Right.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but when I immediately came home, I was in the studio. You know, my main focus was to put the mixtape out, to get back on track as far as doing shows and things of that nature. Because the main thing was it was like I was still in the same spot, which is we got to obtain distribution. You know, so one of the last shows that we already did was there was it was an album release party that they had.
So wait, hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up. So you're back home. You met up with Tru Criminal, and from there you didn't go back to the studio, or?
Yes. That's what I said. They had us in. They had me in the studio. We was laying a lot of freestyles down for various DJs, DJ Juice. I had a couple of little joints that I had laid down, but because like I said, the overall main thing is for us to establish distribution.
Right.
That's what we was trying to get, because without that, you know, financially and metaphorically speaking, we were sinking, so to speak, because I seen, you know, studio bills and all that shit is very expensive. And to be doing this over a period of time like how they was doing it took a toll, even though bread was being made too, but it was like bread was being made and it was going right back into the same pot.